Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Pleased to have you tuning in. Got another great show lined up for you this week, and I know you'll think so after viewing it. Going to be talking with James Vandenberg. Oh, by the way, the Hawks won the big game last week. Got another big game coming up this week. So James Vandenberg, the former Hawkeye quarterback, and I will discuss the game, the win over IU Indiana, but also the game upcoming against Iowa State this Saturday. Then we're going to have David Eickholt, our Hawkeye insider, will be back joining us. And then Sean Bock, back again for week 2 from Hawkeye Insider. We're going to do a special with Sean talking about Hawkeyes in the NFL. So I know a lot of you are getting ready for the start of the NFL season. We're going to have Hawks in the NFL. We're going to feature that. So that being said, I say hello to Craig and Stacy Schroeder with Fight with Flash Foundation or fightwithflash.org. Craig, Stacy, how's everything going with you two?
Oh, awesome.
It's going great.
Great. It's great here as well. Thank you. We're going to go over to the website and go to daveoharasports.com or fightwithflash.org. We're going to talk about the golf tourney upcoming, the Fight with Flash golf tourney coming up. So cannot wait till September 10th when you're seeing this tonight. It will have already taken place, but we're still going to promo the big event. So back with more in James Vandenberg in a few moments. Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see on the screen, my buddy James Vandenberg joining us. James, a former Hawkeye quarterback, now working with RBC Wealth Management, CorridorInvestmentGroup.com. James is going to be gone next week, so his partner, Bill Happel Jr., you've heard me reference the quarterback and the wide receiver. Billy Happel Jr., James is smiling away, going to join us. And I've had Bill on my radio show many times, so going back to my era now a little bit, James, with some of the greats of the 80s and 90s, and in Billy's case, the 80s. So, hey, man, first of all, thanks for joining us as always. And secondly, how you doing after the big Hawkeye victory last Saturday, James?
Good. No, thanks for having me. A lot of fun this weekend. Ultimately capped off with a Hawkeye victory.
So I got to go there right now. We were talking off air a little bit, and I got the big smile on my face still, as do you. I like the fact your confidence with Iowa having a great start and winning 34-6, number 18 Iowa, beating number 17 Indiana, getting ready for that Iowa State game. But I got to ask you, I love that when you said, yeah, I figured Iowa was going to win pretty handily. After all, it is Indiana, still Indiana. So you were confident. We talked off the air a little bit. So you had to be even more confident after Tyler Goodson goes to the house on the fourth play from scrimmage for the Hawkeyes. And then Riley Moss takes it to the house on a pick six, one of his 2 pick sixes. 14-0 right away, Hawks. Pretty good spot.
Yeah, no, it was a classic Iowa victory, quite frankly. I mean, we've talked about this so many times now, but at Iowa, we want to play all 3 phases. I thought Charlie Jones, the punt returner, did awesome. He had a great kick return. I mean, we played good in all 3 phases. We ran the ball. We threw the ball effectively. We played really good defense. It was just a really good showing. We played well as a team. I'm sure there are a lot of corrections that still are getting worked on for this week. But all in all, that was a classic Iowa game of just play sound football, let somebody else make the mistakes, protect the football. It was a good showing, but there's plenty to clean up, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I like the way you hit upon that. All 3 phases were lights out. Special teams, as you mentioned, with Charlie Jones, also on the returns, but also Caleb Shudak with field goals. Torrey Taylor, what more can we say about that? A couple of kicks inside the 20, almost a 50-yard average from punting. So that game, part of the game hasn't dropped off. Defense, as you mentioned, was borderline superlative. Offense, that's what I want to get to you about now. Rushing game, if you take away the 56-yard run that Goodson had on that touchdown, he only ends up averaging about 2.5 yards a carry if you take that away. And I know that's not the real world, but if you hyperanalyze this or go into more detail, then you take a look at what Spencer Petras did, a little under 50% at 13 for 27. But I tell you, the quarterback draw I thought worked out great. Everybody talks about how Spencer's not a runner, and you're smiling because you would have loved to have that.
That was a great play call. That was a great play.
Would you have enjoyed having that in your day?
Yeah, no, I got to do a couple of those. I don't know if I did it as good as Spencer did, but I did get there. That was in the playbook.
So let's go here, James. When we talk about how the scheme changes a bit, and of course the naysayers were out on social media again in the second half because it was a 3-3 game. It was 31-3 at halftime. Indiana gets a field goal in the second half. Iowa gets a field goal in the second half, 34-6 victory. And of course, right away, people picking at Iowa's offense with Spencer Petras. But James, you and I talked off the air a little bit about this. And the scheme changes when you go ahead like that right away, 14-0. So he's not going to try to be. I'm just going to stop there and let you kind of talk about how the game plan changes.
Let's back up even a little more. Okay, so we had the big run. You have the interception return. We're still playing the 17th ranked team in the country. Indiana, I mean, if you looked at their defense, like that was not a joke of a defense by any stretch. So, I mean, I don't know if people just think because you get 2 plays like that, like you're going to go score 60 points. I mean, that was a good football team. They made a couple mistakes. We did a really good job of capitalizing, but ultimately, that's still a good football team. Yes, you are right, though. What was the score going into halftime?
31-3, Iowa up.
31-3?
Yep.
28-3?
No.
I mean, you're not going to play the same way in the second half, no matter what anybody says, as you would in the first when you're up by 28 points on a really good team that has a very explosive offense, which we contained, but ultimately they have a very explosive offense. So, I mean, I don't care if we're running the ball every single – I mean, you want to drag out drives. It doesn't mean you're going to just hunker in and do 4-minute offense, but we definitely don't need to go first, second, third down, throw the ball 3 times and have 3 incompletions and give them the ball back after 33 seconds with the ball. So, yeah, I think everything you're hitting on is correct. But ultimately, Indiana is still a good football team. I think we're going to be glad that we played them early, probably than we would have playing them in week 8 or 10. I bet they end up being a pretty solid football team. But we're a solid football team, and we took advantages of the mistakes they made, and that ultimately ended up in a large point differential, even though the yardage and some of that stuff, if you hyperanalyze it, maybe isn't as lopsided as you think. But go back to the last time. I mean, yeah, that's how I would call it. We played 3 phases of football. We're not trying to get into a game to have 650 yards of offense and win 48-44. We play games exactly how we played it this weekend.
Thank you for saying that because, again, it was 31-3. Iowa was ahead at half, and that was the complaint was, what a boring second half, 3 points for each team, 34-6 final margin, 28-point victory. But I could not agree more with you. So let's go into the last couple minutes with you for this week in this segment. Iowa State looming large this weekend. Iowa State struggled, as a lot of us thought they would. Northern Iowa's a good football team, FCS or not. They have always played the cycle and stuff. Mark Farley brought his group in, and they played – shoulda, coulda, woulda, James. They had every opportunity from a couple years ago. Northern Iowa lost in triple overtime to Iowa State. This year they lose by a score, 16-10. Touchdown and extra point, they win, and they had opportunities. And, Farley even said after the game, no disrespect to Iowa State, but we could have had this game. So you take a look at that, and we take a look at 2 years ago with the rain delay game in Ames. Last time Iowa played Iowa State, Iowa's won the last 5 in a row. 18-17, Iowa wins over Iowa State in that 8-hour total time game with the rain delay and everything. That's the last time they played was 2 years ago. So a lot built up into this game, James. Take us through your thoughts. Iowa going into Iowa State this week.
Well, let's start with the UNI thing. I played on a 2010 Orange Bowl team that, talent-wise, has to be one of the better Iowa teams that's been there. And we had to block 2 field goals against UNI and literally pull out the luckiest victory ever to beat them. UNI is a good football program, and they play in-state schools really tough. I don't care what division or what conference they're in. You don't just circle UNI and think, we're going to go win 55-0. That's not the case. So I don't really look into the UNI thing. I'm sure they could have played a lot better, Iowa State versus UNI. I think Iowa State's probably a lot more talented, but ultimately some of those games just get decided like that. Yeah, our rivalry with Iowa State, it's an awesome one. College game day, I think, is going to be there at Ames. It'll be a tough environment. From a Hawkeye fan, I kind of wish they would have beat UNI like 60-0 because then it would be a little bit more under the radar. But instead, Iowa State's going to hear about how bad they were all week from everybody, which is really not the case. Ultimately, they're ranked 7 or whatever they're at for a reason. They're a top 10 football team, and it's going to be a tough environment. And we're going to have to play really well. And we're going to have to take advantage of whatever cracks there are, like we did against Indiana, and ultimately, turn them into points. But I don't see this game being one-sided in either way. I don't see how it could be. But I just think, like, having been removed now for 10 years, this is gonna be a great football game for those guys to go play in. Like, this is gonna be a ton of fun. I don't know when the last time we both played each other when we're both ranked. We're probably gonna be ranked both in the top 15, maybe in the top 14. I mean, so this is just gonna be a lot of fun for the state of Iowa, for the players involved. I mean, it's why you came to these schools to play in games like this. So I'm pumped just for the guys who get to participate.
Highest rankings combined ever for both teams. So you've got, Iowa State, who, depending on what poll you look at, because like you said, they slid down in a few different polls because of their lack of performance, I guess, for lack of a better term, against Northern Iowa and Iowa. We'll just say 2 top 15 teams. So yeah, first time ever. And again, as you mentioned, ESPN College Game Day will be there. Get ready, starting at 8 o'clock, and then the kickoff will be at 3:30 again. Viewers, remember, it's an hour later than usual on ABC because it's going to be presumed coverage for the 20-year marking of the 9/11 tragedy. So the game is going to be moved back from 2:30 to 3:30. So Iowa at Iowa State. James, obviously the Hawkeyes will work on correcting and cleaning up a few things, as you mentioned as well, going in. I'm excited. You're excited. We're both looking at Hawkeye victories. Close game, as you said. Let's see how well played it is. But is this a one-score game, or do you think Iowa wins by more than that? You notice how I'm not asking you for a specific score?
Gets decided. I mean, 2 things: turnovers. So, I mean, protecting the ball is going to be big, especially on the road, and then running the ball. I mean, whatever team I know they've got a really good tailback. We clearly have a really good running back and controlling the line of scrimmage is pretty as I know. I mean, throwing the ball, and I know they've put up a lot of points in the Big 12. I mean, that's all great. This game's going to come down to turnovers and controlling the line of scrimmage, and whoever does that's going to win it. And yeah, I mean, that's a good recipe for Iowa football.
Yeah, Breece Hall for Iowa State, obviously Tyler Goodson for the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I wasn't asking for a specific score. We both predict the victory, but yeah, like you said.
This one won't be a blowout. Whichever way it goes,
okay.
It will not be a blowout.
All right. James, as always, great stuff. I'll catch up with you in 2 weeks again. Your business partner, Bill Happel Jr. will join us, former Hawkeye great wide receiver. And so we've got the quarterback and the receiver with RBC Wealth Management and CordoInvestmentGroup.com. He is James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback. James, my friend, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
My pleasure as always. For James Vandenberg, I'm Dave O'Hara. That's Hawkeye with me. We'll be back with more to close out the show with Hawkeye Insider David Eickholt. And then we'll have Sean Bock from Hawkeye Insider as well, closing out the show with me in segment 3, talking about Hawkeyes in the NFL. We're getting ready for the NFL season to kick off too, so I want to update you on where some of our Hawkeyes are. Back with more in just a few moments.
When you want the highest yields, you need the best technology. Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Mershman Seeds is one of the most innovative seed companies in the world, providing unmatched advancements in seed treatment. Plus, our sister company, MS Technologies, is putting customers like you at the forefront of soybean genetics. Innovation. It's what provides faster, more even emergence every single time. For the highest yields, Mershman Seeds.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we're participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see on the screen, my buddy David Eickholt, he is back. David is HawkeyeInsider.com. You see all of David's information at the bottom of the screen along with mine. And David, my excitement for you being back is one thing, but yeah. I do want to take a moment to let you talk about, I mentioned to everybody last week where you were, but if you would, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to thank everybody for their prayers, kindness, support, and everything else. I mean, the response was phenomenal and overwhelming and very humbling. My dad lived a full life, and he's got the best seat to every Iowa game in the house from now on. So again, just want to take a quick second and thank everybody for all the support.
I do want to say again to those listeners that wanted to know and viewers Now you understand David's message a couple weeks ago to his parents, first time he ever shouted out to him, and I'm just ecstatic you got to spend the final moments your dad's life with him. So again, all our best to you and your mom, Valerie, David, and from us here at Hawkeyed with Dave O'Hara.
Appreciate it.
It's truly our pleasure. And so now, take that a moment for a side. Now we can smile. We can now laugh and say Hawks 1-0, 1-0 in the Big Ten, most importantly. Beat a tough Indiana team coming in, and like James Vandenberg said in the segment before, David, like it or not, that is still a top 20 ranked team that they manhandled.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to note too, Dave, is Wisconsin has a Big Ten loss. Minnesota has a Big Ten loss. Nebraska has a Big Ten loss. The only school other than that is Illinois in the Big Ten West that has a win. So just as far as that early separation goes, it is huge, and I think we all know that Illinois is not really going to play a factor this year as far as who goes the title or not.
I like the way you're thinking. Okay, so that being said, our time goes so quickly here, so let's get to it. Go online again, either via social media or again, you saw earlier in the segment, and you'll see it at the end, all of David's information. And Sean Bock will join us in a segment after this. He works with David at Hawkeye Insider and CBS Sports and 24/7, as you can see on their apparel. But the nice thing is that Sean will cover Hawkeyes in the NFL right now because we've got an NFL season kicking off. When this airs on Friday, there will already be a game played with Tristan Wirfs and his Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tristan was on this show last year. And then the rest of the NFL kicks off on Sunday. So you'll appreciate Sean's work next segment talking about Hawks in the NFL. But let's you and I talk about current Hawks. Great to see Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp honored pregame with the basketball team. They made it to Iowa City and big fan waves. But I'm going to step out of your way. You and Sean did a great job. We won't hit it now, but go to David's, all his social media and Sean's as well, or HawkeyeInsider.com. They gave grades to the Iowa defense, offense against Indiana. Let's you and I talk Iowa State. You just came back from the presser today. I'm trying to get this all in so I can step out of the way and let you roll. Tyler Goodson, Kirk Ferentz. You talked to many other players, and Coach Ferentz was the coach you talked to. I'm going to get out of the way. Tell us what was said.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I know that the team's very much locked in. You got to think about this, though, too, Dave, that this is Spencer Petras' first start in front of fans. A lot of the key players, this is their first time in front of fans. Torrey Taylor's never punted in front of fans. That's why Saturday was such a big deal for him. But without a doubt, the most highly anticipated Cy-Hawk game in the history of the series. The first time the two schools have been ranked inside top 25. Not only that, Dave, they're within the top 10 now. The eyes of the college football world are on the state of Iowa. We got Kirk Herbstreit and all those guys going to be the leaders in that. But I will say this, whoever wins, if Iowa wins, national spotlight's going to be on them. They could be in potentially for a very special season.
Speaking of Kirk Herbstreit, ESPN Game Day, as we talked about with James Vandenberg, the segment before you, going to be there 8 o'clock. And then, of course, it's on national TV at 3:30, not 2:30 Central Time viewers because of the 9/11 anniversary or 9/11 memorial, 20 years. So that's going to push the game back an hour. But let's talk about the comments. And you mentioned Iowa's won 5 in a row against Iowa State, the last 4 in Ames. So let's do this. Let's have you talk about Tyler Goodson had a little bulletin board material. We got some great backs here. Tyler Goodson for the Hawks, Breece Hall for the Cyclones, and then Kirk Ferentz had a nice comment about no arrests at Kinnick Stadium, and he had a nice little joke for you.
Yeah, so Tyler Goodson basically said this is Iowa State's Super Bowl, but he meant it in this regard, though, too. College game day is at Ames, and Tyler said that's good. They might be distracted by that, and Iowa can just buckle in on what they want to focus on. When asked, though, to compare his style with Breece Hall, he said, I think I'm a little bit more versatile. Breece Hall's a big, powerful back, and we all know what he can do. He's one of the best backs in college football. But Tyler said, I think I'm a little bit more versatile, and I think I can do stuff at a better rate than him. And as far as Kirk Ferentz's, snide remark, which I thought was hilarious, by the way, it was reported that there was no arrest in Kinnick Stadium on Saturday, which, by the way, shocker number 1 in itself. But Kirk said there's fewer arrests than we had fumbles in that game. So, you knew he was going to be mad about the turnovers.
But he also had a quip about the Iowa State defense.
Oh, yeah, that he was very impressed by the defense, especially for playing in a conference that it really is not known for playing defense.
I love it when KF is on his game. So, hey, David, our time goes so quickly. Thank you so much. And just like that, we'll talk to you next week, hopefully about a Hawkeye victory against Iowa State. Can't wait.
I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, as always. And for David Eickholt, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeyed. Back with more to close out the show with Sean Bock, also HawkeyeInsider.com. Back with more Hawkeyed in a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. We're living through some of the most interesting and challenging times many of us have ever seen. Knowing who you can rely on is more important than ever. Many of us turn to our families to get us through, and the same holds true here. From our fair upfront pricing to exceptional service after the sale, we truly want to exceed your expectations. So give us a call or stop by and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology or a seed company that's writing the book on it? Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Mershman Seeds has been treating soybeans for decades, long before it was commonplace. We're the leader in technology, introducing Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment with an added fungicide to help produce a faster, more even emergence every single time. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see on the screen next to me, my buddy Sean Bock with Hawkeye Insider. You see all of Sean's information at the bottom of the screen along with mine. Part of that fantastic CBS Sports Network 24/7, along with our buddy David Eickholt. They cover Hawkeye Insider very well for us. We're double dipping this week with Sean and David. Sean's going to cover the NFL. Hawkeye's in the NFL. I've been teasing it all show. NFL kicks off this weekend, Sunday. Actually, when you see this on Friday or later on the weekend, the Thursday night game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys, but the rest of the NFL kicking off on Sunday. So you'll be ready to go as to where the Hawkeyes are in the NFL right now. So first of all, as always, Sean, thanks for joining us. Secondly, how's everything going?
It's going great, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Very good, and you're welcome, and thanks for being here. It went so well the first time we thought we'd have you back. So
Hey, might as well.
Yeah, why not? And Sean is going to be back. We're going to test fate. Sean will be back throughout the season with us. There's so much recruiting to cover, as you hear David and I talk about quite regularly during David Eickholt's segment with Hawkeye Insider. Sean handles a lot of the recruiting, so we have overload with time-wise. So we got a lot of information to get to in a short period of time. So Sean will cover that for us throughout the season as well. So Sean, big Hawkeye victory last Saturday. Going into the Iowa State game, Hawks beat Indiana, as we talked about, 34-6 earlier with David and James Vandenberg. So let's you and I talk about Hawkeyes in the NFL. It starts with no bigger names than George Kittle, the best tight end in football. At least people in Kansas City will disagree and say Travis Kelce is, or is it Travis Kelce now?
Yeah.
Apparently you heard that snafu in the offseason. But then you've got... for me, with Kittle, you've got Fant in Denver, Noah Fant. You've got Hawkinson in Detroit. But then offensive lineman Tristan Wirfs, who would have played last night with Tampa Bay against Dallas. We record this on Tuesday afternoon, so we don't know the result of that game, obviously. But Wirfs, and then you also talk about Brendan Sheriff with the Washington football team, offensive lineman. 35-plus Hawkeyes on NFL rosters or practice squads currently, still in the top five and throughout all college football with bringing guys to the NFL. I'm going to step out of the way and let you fill in some blanks for us, please.
Right, yeah. I mean, you talked about the tight ends. That's the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about Iowa football and putting guys in the NFL. TJ Hawkinson, I mean, he's probably been one of the big risers. I know last year he had some injuries, and this year he's probably going to be healthy, be full go for the whole year. So I don't know if we're supposed to be talking fantasy football terms, had a couple of drafts as of late. So
why not?
Yeah, he moved up a couple of the charts from what I've noticed, and Kittle is also up there, and then Fant as well. A lot of people have taken him around those later rounds, but
a couple of interesting things I wanted to notice, and I'm going to have you finish your thought here in just a second.
Yeah.
When we talk about this, and again, throughout this segment, I just want to jump in real quick. Throughout this segment, you'll see when Sean and I are talking, Rob and Abby with Homegrown Media gets us on the air, do a great job. On post-production, we're going to add all the names but of Hawkeyes in the NFL currently, and I really wanted to hit on Mekhi Sargent with the Titans, Parker Hesse from my home area. He's from Waukon, I'm from the Castalia-Postville area, but I know Parker's parents and Perry and Marcia, and couldn't be happier for him with the Falcons. There's some guys like that I want you to kind of highlight a little bit that, the next minute or so that I have with you left, we're going to be running the names throughout this segment, but let's highlight a few of those. Mekhi Sargent, couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, he had a big preseason for the Tennessee Titans. You know, Sargent, obviously a guy last year who worked mainly behind Tyler Goodson as that backup running back role. And, I think a lot of people forgot that Sargent could have started on multiple Power 5 teams. And he got his chance this preseason with the Titans. Did a great job. Obviously, I think the Titans had some injuries as well, which kind of helped him a little bit. But he seems like a very serviceable backup to Derrick Henry.
I think that, and David and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, and I think that's going to be a great mix. Do want to mention my buddy Ike Budker. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him with the Buffalo Bills. Ike's been on this show a couple times, brought Tristan Wirfs with him, but also we've got Micah Hyde with the Buffalo Bills. James Vandenberg and I talked about him last season. We've got, and even though he's a Northern Iowa Panther from Western Iowa, Lenox, Iowa, Spencer Brown, a lot of Hawkeyes in the NFL. Sean will wrap up by saying this. Great work out of you. Again, we've got that list throughout we only talked about a handful, so you can't say, Dave, Sean, you forgot about this guy. They're all listed on the screen throughout this segment. So Sean, Great stuff out of you. I look forward to having you back throughout the year because we have big recruiting news you're going to be covering for us later on. What a huge weekend to bring basketball and football recruits to Kinnick Stadium with the big victory over Indiana.
Yeah, definitely huge. It'll be an interesting fall, that's for sure.
Cannot wait for more. Iowa beats Iowa State. We'll talk about that next week. You got it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Iowa State has a loss against Iowa. Sean and I are calling it right here, as did James Vandenberg. But Sean will join us in a couple of weeks down the road. Sean, my friend, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, for having me.
My pleasure. For Sean Bock and for David Eickholt and James Vandenberg, and to you, the viewers, for tuning in. Thanks so much. Also to Craig and Stacy Schroeder with Fight with Flash, but also Rob and Abby with Homegrown Media. Thanks to them for getting us on the air. And as I mentioned to you, the viewers, thanks again for tuning in to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Please stay tuned for just a second after the show for the rolling credits to give the attention and respect due to our advertisers and sponsors. Thanks to them as always as well. So for the aforementioned guests, I'm Dave O'Hara. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you.